I began to get quiet first, and so I began to get silenced, and I stopped talking. I began to withdraw, and that's not me at all.
Over the last few months, Darnisha Weary of Edmonds started noticing a shift in her personality. Even as she seemed busy and driven, protesting for racial justice, opening up a new business, a coffee shop, she realized she was living a muted version of herself. She was suffering from racism.
I was experiencing some serious racism, overt racism in the workplace. I received some pretty nasty emails with monkeys in them. I was called some pretty nasty names.
Weary worked at a white nonprofit where racist emails intensified. It was too much to bear.
I ended up having a cardiac episode and had to be rushed to the hospital. They thought I was having a heart attack. I went through all these tests, right? And then it came down to it was stress related. It was stress caused. It was caused by stress. And I didn't realize that this pandemic and this racial uprising was affecting me in such a way.
What Darnisha Weary is talking about is racial trauma. It's even got a scientific name, race-based traumatic stress, RBTS. According to Mental Health America, it's a mental and emotional injury caused by encounters with racial bias, ethnic discrimination, racism, and hate crimes.
It's unique in the fact that with racial trauma, it's constantly happening. It's ongoing. Whereas with PTSD, typically it's a singular event.
Ashley McGirt is a mental health therapist who specializes in racial trauma, a concept scientists have studied for more than 20 years, but is now gaining more attention.
We know that it exists by the way that Black and brown bodies respond. Currently, Black and brown bodies are experiencing chronic stress-related illnesses at disproportionate rates. We are dying at disproportionate rates, and we can attribute that a lot to racism because, we have more strokes, high blood pressure, chronic heart failure, a lot of these things that are attributed to stress.
Experts say RBTS can be traced down through generations. Darnisha Weary has seen that herself.
I think as Black women, I grew up watching my mom and my grandmother and all the women in my family work so hard to never say no. I need this. I saw them put others before themselves all the time.
If you think back to when Black people were enslaved, Black women were taking care of the slave master's children, breastfeeding them. They were doing all sorts of things to take care of the whole community. Can you imagine how significant of an amount of stress that can be?
Psychologist Dr. Katrina Sanford of Seattle says one of the keys to coping with racial trauma is understanding your ancestral connection.
If you don't know where your people come from, and that's one of the things that's a part of health, is being able to know yourself. And when you know yourself and you know you're the bomb and you know you're amazing, regardless of what society tells you, then that helps your health outcomes improve. It helps you physically be more healthy, it helps you mentally be more healthy, and it helps you spiritually be more healthy.
Dr. Sanford founded the healing center Niles Edge to do just that, a spiritual, now virtual space to help people connect to themselves, using therapies such as breathing exercises, sound and talk therapy, and meditation.
Niles Edge is trying to ensure that our people can now understand who they are, how their ancestors healed, and figure out ways to heal themselves so that we can continue to live in this society that oppresses us, but so that not just live in it, thrive and find joy in who we are, even though things are really difficult.
Remember how Darnisha opened up a new business? It wasn't just a financial venture, but part of a healing process that included therapy and a cup of black coffee.
We kept looking for a space and a place to just be with our Black community in an area where it's pretty much white all around, and we could never find a place.
Since Darnisha and her husband couldn't find it, they created it.
Being a Black person here, in Black coffee, I'm allowed to be unapologetically Black. I don't have to code switch. I don't have to worry about if I'm too loud. I speak with my hands. I don't have to worry about, controlling that or controlling my facial figures. And these are things that I know that I have done throughout my life, in the workplace, in my community, just to be safe, because I live in an all-white space.
So how can we as a society find solutions for people suffering from racial trauma? Mental health experts say it begins with acknowledging this trauma exists and then finding empathy.
I want our businesses to understand that if someone needs a mental health break, that's okay. That the environment, not just in businesses, but in our society as a whole, allows for people to take that time that they need. Because you can't have someone at your job be able to do their job well and be productive if they're unhealthy, if they're unhappy, and if their mental health is struggling. And so that's where I hope we go, where we become more empathic about the physical and mental things that people are going through and allow them the space to heal and support them as they're doing it.
Sounds like a challenge to the companies to actually pay attention to mental health.
Absolutely.
Back to Darnisha's coffee shop, the safe space she's created. She hopes all people of color realize it's normal to struggle. But in order to heal, you've got to focus on caring for yourself.
The joy that I can't even explain. I've learned I have balance in my life right now, and things are not always perfect, but I know how to say no. I learn how to set boundaries. I take care of myself. I put it in my calendar to turn things off or to take a walk or to do something for myself. And so it's just so important for Black women, because we're carrying so much every single day. We're carrying so many things we don't even realize we're carrying.
African Americans are a strong people, a seemingly infinitely resilient people. We have a long history of enduring and persevering through the severest of trials. Our ancestors endured slavery and persevered through Jim Crow. Evidence of these qualities can be seen today through our struggle for civil rights and our continuing pursuit for a level playing field. We are an industrious people. We have built communities under seemingly impossible circumstances. During the Great Depression, when the entire country was under enormous duress, we managed to care for one another with fewer resources than even the poorest of whites. Families gathered together, usually in churches, to help sustain large numbers of Blacks and see them through the extremely tough times. We are a creative people. Through slave times and the oppressive decades that followed, we established a distinctive culture replete with new languages, names, customs, and behaviors. We have invented our own games, foods, music, arts, and fashions. Many of us have managed to carve out a prosperous existence for what at times amounted to society's scraps. We are a just and forgiving people. Think about it. Despite the relentless oppression under which Blacks have lived since slavery, there has been no large-scale organized retaliatory terrorism fueled by hatred and a need for revenge. We have demonstrated time and time again that while we can courageously fight for justice, we are not crippled with hatred and rage, providing ourselves to be among the most magnanimous people right here on earth, and the most magnanimous people right here in America. So, healing from injuries past. Certainly, we need to heal from our historical injuries, and we need to do more. We need to become healthy, like they said in the clip. Healing will take us only part of the way. Healing will take us only part of the way. Healing will only take us part of the way. Working towards health and well-being will take us to our goal. It'll be a piece of it. It is important that we discuss this distinction. There is a significant difference between not being sick and being well. If we are to heal and become healthy, we will do so by building upon our strengths. We will need to draw upon our inner fortitude, resilience, and endurance. We will need to tap into our industriousness and creativity. We will need to avail ourselves of our time, of our innate sense of justice, as well as our productivity for acceptance. Most of all, we have to apply our spirituality and ability to love to the task before us. Welcome back. Happy Monday. Welcome back to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward, and this is chapter 6, the final chapter in Dr. Joy DeGruy, her book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, America's Legacy of Enduring Injury and Healing. And just to catch you up real quick on what we've all read. So start out in chapter 1 is I Don't Even Know This Race on page 18. Then we went to Hold to 3/5 Dehumanization on page 46. Crimes Against Humanity is chapter 3 on page 70. Chapter 4 is Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, page 110. Chapter 5 is Slavery's Children's last video, page 140. And chapter 6 is Healing, page 178. And that's where we are healing. But I started on page 182 at the first paragraph. African Americans are strong people. So in the video, they mentioned, I think, racial-based traumatic stress. Racial-based traumatic stress, that's just another word for what we've been talking about for the last 5 videos, post-traumatic slave syndrome. They're talking about what Dr. Joy DeGruy has been talking about. They are a bit incorrect as well, as far as some of the stuff that they were saying. As far as within the Black community, especially the Black conscious community and the Black circles, they've been studying the effects of slavery for more than 20 years. I know that. I've been studying it myself for 20 years. So it's been going on longer than that. If you go back to Amos Wilson, Colby Cambone, even Francis Cress Welsing, Neely Fuller, and stuff like that, effects of slavery has been studied since the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Probably longer than that. So they are a bit wrong in that. But they said race-based traumatic stress, and we're talking about post-traumatic slave syndrome in a nutshell. That's what the video was talking about. But it was talking about from the angle of healing from the trauma, because that's what we want to focus on today, is healing from the trauma. But as we've already established, healing from the trauma is only part of the solution. It's only one weapon in the tool belt that we have, right? It's one component, healing from the trauma. But how do we heal from over 400 years and this continuous trauma that we face as Black people? Now, another thing in the video is I know they were talking to a woman. I know they were talking to a Black woman, but we have to stop looking at the trauma of racism as how it only affects women. Slavery and racism affected both Black men and Black women. And we have to start being honest about that. Yes, while the Black woman faced her particular traumas during slavery, well, guess what? The Black man, and this is the joke that me, PC, and Pat made. Because the Black man was not at Disney World at the Super Bowl during slavery. The Black man was facing his particular type of trauma, and the Black woman was facing her particular type of trauma, right? We're not in a who had the worst type of trauma Olympic game or some kind of competition. We're not doing that either. It's not what we're doing. But what we are establishing and what we are making note of is both Black men and Black women suffered from trauma, from slavery and racism, both sides. So we have to talk about total healing for all of us. Matter of fact, let me go a step further. Black men, women, and children suffered the trauma of slavery and racism. Black men, women, and children, right? So we have to be able to look at it from a holistic view, because these are the people who are going to make up our society. These are the people who do make up our society. You can't only focus on the trauma of Black women. You have to focus on the trauma that Black women and Black men experienced. We have to. And remember, and shout out to the sister in the video. Let me just say this. So she was working in the white space and experienced racism working in the white space, and was fortunate enough to remove herself from that white space and create her own space. And we should be creating our own spaces, but you cannot outrun racism. You have to defeat it. Remember that. You cannot outrun racism. You have to defeat it. And if you build it, you must protect it. So let's pick up our reading back on page 183 at the bottom paragraph. So talking about healing from the trauma of slavery. So how do we do this? I certainly don't have all the answers. I suspect no one person does, but I believe I have a few with which to begin. Completing our works will take more thought, research, and insight, and we will need contributions from many within the outside of our community. In chapter 4, we discussed the 3 primary patterns of behavior associated with post-traumatic slave syndrome, which is vacant esteem, ever-present danger, and racial socialization. In chapter 8, we examined some of their manifestations in our culture today. It is now time to consider establishing new, healthier patterns of behavior. We have to establish new patterns of behavior, right? Patterns that will be the foundation upon which a new and powerful legacy can develop. Rather than crush self-esteem, we must do everything in our power to build it. Rather than be torn down by the anger that is present within us, we must be able to create and maintain a state of inner well-being. Rather than allow our children to be socialized by a racist society, we must continuously and deliberately educate and socialize them to understand their inherent nobility. So this is what we talk about on the breakdowns on Friday all the time. This is what I'm always talking about here on Mondays. It's the whole purpose of the videos that I put out, the historical videos that I put out on Wednesday two main reasons for my historical videos on Wednesdays. One is to show that we always fought back, and 2, that we were able to still create for ourselves despite the conditions, despite the oppressive conditions that we were under. We were still able to create for ourselves, whether it's the Maroon colonies or other communities in more modern times. We were always able to create for ourselves. And the difference now is we've been dumbed down and we've been socialized to not love ourselves. The socialization worked. We don't love ourselves. Vacant esteem is real. The racist socialization led to vacant esteem and ever-present danger. So the post-traumatic slave syndrome, that's what we are suffering from. So we must understand and recognize that post-traumatic slave syndrome has severely affected us. And we must work diligently, like Dr. Joy said, we must work diligently to heal ourselves. We must work to do it. We must face our demons. We must face our demons. And in facing our demons, we must defeat our demons so we can rise anew and be able to really take care of ourselves and be the true leaders of ourselves and become a powerful people. Because the only way you can defeat a powerful people is to become powerful yourself. But it starts with our healing as individuals and our healing as a collective. We don't love each other as a collective. As a collective, not enough of us love each other. But I will admit that there are enough narratives telling us that we don't like each other and don't love each other that are false. There are a number of us, a good number of us that like each other and love each other, but it's not enough. I believe it's too many of us that don't like each other and don't love each other because of this racist socialization that we've had over the time. But it's up to us to break the chains of psychological slavery. I might have to put that book. Well, no, because we're reading Elijah Muhammad next, but that's going to be in the next choices. Breaking the chains of psychological slavery. So let's get back into it. So building self-esteem. So we got to build our Black self-esteem. So beliefs are powerful. What you believe in matters. Remember our discussions in chapter 4? They strongly influence how we think, feel, and behave. And their influence can be negative or positive. If a person has negative beliefs about their value and skills, they will often self-sabotage their efforts or cease trying at all. If a person has a positive belief about their ability and worth, they are more likely to achieve the results they are after. When we believe ourselves to be unworthy and incapable, these beliefs have little basis in fact, yet they can still be powerful influences. What we need most in these instances is evidence to the contrary. If we can see that we are in fact valuable, that we are in fact able, we will change our beliefs about ourselves accordingly, right? So we need to be able to see our Black successes. We need to be able to see the successful Black people in the communities where the Black people are. Our success, our images of success need to be tangible. They need to be as realistic as the images of success that we have now, that are not real images of success, but images of more acceptance of white supremacy, which is the neighborhood dope man or the neighborhood pimp or the person who's doing all the wrong and getting all the protection and the praise. Building esteem can be expedited if we understand its components. If you remember, esteem means worth or value. Self-esteem has to do with our evaluations of our own personal worth or value. To be a good assessment of our worth requires two simple building blocks. First, we have to, in fact, be valuable. And second, we have to be aware of the value we produce. So for one, we have to be valuable. And two, we have to be aware of the value that we produce. Are you valuable? Am I valuable? We have to be honest with ourselves, look into the mirror and ask yourself, am I valuable? And if so, what is my value? What is my value to the world? How am I valuable to this world? How am I valuable to myself? How am I valuable to my family? How am I valuable to my community? Am I just existing, or am I truly contributing to the positive? Am I contributing to the betterment of myself and the people around me? Am I truly doing that? Am I doing a half-assed job? All those, it's all those things, true accountability, true self-assessment. Are we really assessing ourselves truly like we should to be able to heal? Because if we're lying to ourselves, what the hell is the point? Why are we wasting our time if we're lying to ourselves? We all need to honestly and accurately evaluate ourselves, our actions, and our consequences we produce. This is especially important for those who hold positions of leadership or are otherwise in the public eye. For example, if you're an artist, for instance, a musician, does your music reinforce demeaning stereotypes and debase people? Or does your music inspire and ennoble people? Does your work promote unconsciousness or awareness? Any position that you hold, any job that you hold, any place that you put yourself in, what is the quality that you are producing? What kind of quality person are you? Are you for us or are you against us? Are you down with the rugged individualism or are you for the rise of the group? I saw a video yesterday. It was interesting. And the question was, would you take a job that gives you $100,000, that pays you $100,000, that pays everybody else $200,000? Or would you take a job that pays you $50,000 and pays everybody else $20,000? My immediate answer was, I'll take the $100,000 because I'm good and everybody else good. We all good. But the overall result of that questioning of that survey is most people chose the $50,000 because they couldn't stand to see others around them do better. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? This is what we're healing from. That's the post-traumatic slave syndrome. And this brings us to the second building block of self-esteem. Awareness of the value we produce. Most of us do things of great value every day, and we simply aren't aware of them. I'm guilty of this. I am definitely guilty of this. We spend way too much time focusing on the negative and take the positive for granted. When we are evaluated in school or at work, if we receive 23 positive remarks and 2 negative ones, we tend to focus on the 2 negatives. Some years ago, during an interview, the champion golfer Tiger Woods was asked if he learned from his mistakes. His response surprised most of the audience. He answered by saying that he never pays attention to what he did wrong. Instead, he focuses on what he did right and works to improve those things. How many of us work in jobs we consider mundane and relatively meaningless, never considering all the good we're actually doing? Whether we are blue collar workers or white collar, work for minimum wage or for the big bucks, rarely do we pay attention to all these things that we are truly helping. The administrative assistant to a claims adjuster at an insurance company is one of the long line of folks that help others recover from their losses. The assistant contributes to making people's lives whole again on a daily basis. The important question is, are they aware of all those that they impact? And we haven't even spoken about all the good they do providing for their families, right? So she has a great point, myself included. A lot of people, we spend a lot of time focusing on the negative, the bad things, and not the positive that we've done and the good things, the seeds that we've planted. I'm guilty of it right now, focusing on negative things that have happened. Life is happening right now for me. I ain't gonna lie. Life is lifing right now, but I've been working hard and being conscious about the mindset that I'm going to take while life is lifing right now. So am I going to be angry and succumb to the foolishness that life is doing? Or am I going to dig my heels in and fight back? And I chose to fight back. And one of the things I can say in choosing to fight back, no stress. Choosing to fight back helped me calm down, sit down, and come up with solutions. I came up with solutions. I got some new things on the horizon that's happening. So it is understanding that we have a choice to make on how we react to the racism or the stress and everything that we deal with on a regular basis. We have a choice. We can succumb to it or we can rise above it. But we have a choice. I say let's be champion. Same thing with whatever. But I'm talking about, I don't even know how I said that. Racism. When racism happens, we can either succumb to it or we can rise above it. And rise above it don't necessarily mean trying to be friendly. In African American culture, there is no lack of pride in the accomplishments of our family members and friends. However, there is frequently a paucity of personal one-on-one acknowledgments of their deeds. I often heard parents praise other members of their family once they have left the room, as if to praise them in their presence would be improper. In the absence of voice recognition and praise from their elders, children often feel like their parents are not proud of them and carry a lifetime of self-doubt as to their worth. Healthy esteem comes from healthy and positive exchanges with the people in our lives on whom we depend for support and guidance. Some families take time to consider all that went well for them the previous day, explore ways of making things better, and plan what will go well the next day. So once again, choosing what you want to focus on and then being able to make plans to either help yourself or hurt yourself. Going to this next section, which is taking control of your inner world. I don't think we recognize how much power we have within ourselves, how much power we have over ourselves. Matter of fact, that we have all the power over ourselves because we let so many outside circumstances affect us and dictate. how we respond and exist. And I'm saying that with the understanding of the trauma, of the continuous trauma that we've experienced. And we've never had a chance to self-actualize as a people in America. We never had a chance to just be left alone and just be. So we have to learn how to find ourselves, how to self-actualize in an environment that is not designed for us to self-actualize, in a hostile environment, behind enemy lines. How do we become a powerful people behind enemy lines? How do we become a healed people behind enemy lines? Because that's the situation that we're dealing with. But that doesn't mean we can't do for self and be for self and empower ourselves, enrich ourselves, and heal ourselves. We can do that. So, taking control of our inner world. The anger that lies just below our awareness and at times bursts forth seemingly out of our control is real. There's much to be angry about. Many of us have accepted these feelings as simply the way we are. This anger contributes to a shortened lifespan. This is not just simply the way we are. To some degree, this anger is killing us. Like in the video, they talked about all the health disparities that we experience because of the stress of racism. In some ways, it is like pain we've adopted and accepted. Unfortunately, as we adopt and accept, we don't see the need to handle our anger and reduce our stress. When human beings have been exposed to stress early in their lives, that stress can have profound effects on their ability to manage and control their emotions as they get older. So this is going to be important. Doctors have actually found a stress hormone, cortisol, a chemical in our bodies that clouds our ability to be rational. All right. For many people, the effects of this stress hormone begin before they are even born. Recent studies have revealed that pregnant women can pass cortisol through their placenta to the infant, the impact of which can be devastating. After birth, the continued exposure to stress releases more cortisol into the bloodstream, preventing the natural connections necessary to access higher brain functions. And this release of higher levels of cortisol could result in limited learning ability. Sounds familiar? Sounds familiar. All the people that we see in our lower income communities, or just Black people, period, that we see who have a short fuse, they don't take nothing, they don't play that, they'll pop off, it's on site, all these different things. She's explaining why that behavior exists and how that behavior exists. They literally cannot control themselves. They literally cannot rationalize what they're doing because of the cortisol. They have literally been conditioned to go from 0 to 60. And not only have they been conditioned, it's become a biological part of them. And then the environment around them reinforces it. Hey, so that's just them. They go from 0 to 60. They don't have to learn how to control their anger and manage themselves because that's who they've been conditioned to be. And before birth, the exposure to high levels of stress and cortisol. I remember having a conversation with a young man and telling him about the effects of stress on the fetus, and it didn't get through his brain. He couldn't rationalize how a fetus or the baby in the womb could be affected by the stress of the mother. And I'm like, you have no idea how environment impacts people. So under stress, with our higher brain functions inhibited by cortisol, our lower brain functions take over and fight or flight survival behaviors become prominent. When these lower functions are at play, children as well as adults begin to live as though every stressful event is a threat, which in turn causes the release of more cortisol, further inhibiting access to reasoning parts of their brain. So now we're fighting now. We fighting because I'm afraid and we fighting. You can probably recall instances where you have witnessed individuals faced with the simple directive who responded as though they are under attack. Once stressed, the individual must return to a calm and balanced state in order to access their ability to reason. Some people can live in a constant state of crisis, becoming in a way addicted to the stress and finding ways to trigger the release of cortisol and live in a perpetual cycle of conflict. So our environments must change. Our environments must change. When our environments change, that will help lower our levels of stress and lower the chances of us becoming people who go from 0 to 60 so quick. If we don't change our environments, it won't help to try to change the behavior of the people. Because it's the same that I've noticed. Like I said, I've done classes in drug rehab facilities, like safe sex classes in drug rehab facilities for a while. And I've had a chance to see some of the people who lived in the communities surrounding my community that go into the program, they receive new information, a new programming, but it's not implemented because when they go back in their environment, they fall back into the old program. Environment matters. Not only because that's why she said the esteem is only a part of it. The environment matters too, and the support system. How is our individual and collective esteem? How are our environments, and how do we support each other? Whatever the cause, regardless of whether what is occurring is blatant racism and personality conflict or just a simple accounting error, you must retain a level of composure which allows you to make rational decisions. It is impossible to make sound decisions while simultaneously being enraged. For many, this sounds like common sense, but for those who have few tools other than anger and aggression to confront the injuries imposed upon them, it's no easy task. So first, if you are angry, wait for your anger to subside. Right? Well, let me finish reading before I say it. Which may require you to remove yourself from the situation for a while. Remember, it is almost impossible to think rationally when you are angry. Find a way to wait until you become calm. Once you've calmed down, you can plan your response, and more often than not, you will find you have many options. So, yes, I agree with what she's saying. If you find yourself angry in a situation, do your best to remove yourself from the situation. And she understands this too. But I'm going to say it because I feel like it needs to be said. It's more than just saying it. And I'm not saying she doesn't get that. I'm fully aware that she understands this. Matter of fact, she understands this better than I do. So it's not stepping on nobody's toes, but I'm just saying. So when you find yourself angry, remove yourself from the situation. But that comes with practice. That comes with practice and support. Practicing being able to control yourself when you are angry. Because all you've known up to this point was 0 to 60. So all you've known is 0 to 60. So it comes with practice. You have to do daily practices to help yourself not become angry, not be the 0 to 60 person, to be able to rationalize in situations that you would normally go from 0 to 60. You know, when you are angry, you lose control. And when you are angry, the inability to make good decisions could cause you to either make worse decisions or not good enough decisions. That might be the same thing, but the decisions ain't good enough that you make, and the outcome is worse for you. So, we are forever hearing about the benefits of regular exercise and healthy eating. We are encouraged to walk, run, bike, swim, do yoga, and stretch. We are told to eat fewer foods with sugar and fat and more foods with high in fiber. We hear about it so much. It is as if we have to do it. It is if this is what we have to do to live happy and fulfilling lives. While it is obviously simplistic to believe diet and exercise will cure all of us, it is true that we can have an inculcating effect when we are emotionally assaulted, right? They can help us to maintain our balance, and the more balance we have in our lives, the less likely we will be to react emotionally and the longer we can remain calm. We got to take our health more serious, Black people. And I'm not just saying that as the little skinny dude on YouTube, but I am saying this as a healthcare professional, 14 years in the field as a healthcare professional. We got to do better and take better care of ourselves. We got to make better decisions. We have to really, truly care about ourselves and value ourselves. I can tell you that vacant esteem is real because you wouldn't believe the type of stuff that I've seen working in HIV/AIDS prevention and in just a healthcare setting, period. You wouldn't believe the things that people do to themselves because of the lack of esteem that we have for ourselves. The majority of the people that I tell who are HIV positive are Black people. We are looking for love, feeling, and affection, upliftment, all the good things, all the good feelings. We're looking for that in all the wrong places and all the wrong ways. We haven't done the real work to heal the root of the problem. We're only focusing on the symptoms. And in focusing on the symptoms, we are not healing truly. We're not healing. We're treating. We're not healing. And in treating, the ailments continue to fester. They continue to grow. They don't go anywhere. Beyond exercise and diet, anything we can do to make our lives easier would be great. Doing our best to take more time for ourselves and families is always a good idea. Another important step we can take to make our lives easier is to manage our finances in a way that creates stability and wealth. More and more Americans are living with greater and greater debt, and with increased debt becomes increased stress. In the face of all the energy advertisers are directing at us to buy their stuff, we have to make sure we do not succumb to their efforts to turn us into mindless consumers. Too late. Black Friday just passed recently. Too late. Historically, African Americans have had to deal with issues of severe poverty, right? Again and again, we have demonstrated the capacity to live and function within our means, even during times of overt discrimination and in the face of limited resources. Now the quest for material possessions has led to frivolous spending and short-sighted financial planning, perpetuating the cycle of inherited debt instead of bequeathing to our children the fruits of our labors. Learning to make sound financial decisions will ensure our culture's futures as well as increase our own well-being. And Dr. Amos Wilson talked about this. We have a need to keep up with white people. We have a need to keep up with the Joneses. We have a need to keep up with the masses. We have a need to feel like we have power. We want to feel like we have power. We want to look like we have power. But we don't want to actually do what we need to do to get real power. But if I look like I have power, if I look like somebody, then I am somebody instead of actually being somebody, because perception is reality. Except when you look in the dictionary, perception and reality have two separate definitions. And reality is, I am recording right now. You may perceive me as recording something that's insignificant. That's perception. But the reality is, I'm recording. The reality is, I am doing a book review. The perception is, I don't like the book. But the reality, I am doing a book review. The difference between perception and reality. We as African Americans are also affected by this racist socialization, right? Because this is racism is the root of the issue. Racism is the root of the issue, right? Many of us believe as though we believe that whites is somehow better, that we are deficient people, we are the deficient people that white people say we are. This is one of the most insidious consequences of post-traumatic slave syndrome. At the same time, many of us also believe in the illusion of the American dream. Becoming clear about who we are as well as what we need for our material and spiritual access and our spiritual and material success is the foundation upon which our health depends. We need to tell our children the truth and prepare them to thrive in the real America. We need to replace America's racist socialization with racial socialization. So Dr. Joy is saying replace racist socialization with racial socialization. So what is racial socialization? Racial socialization is the process whereby we come to know our strengths, understand the world in which we live, and position ourselves to thrive. So let me read that again. Racial socialization is the process whereby we come to know our strengths, understand the world in which we live, and position ourselves to thrive as a race within a world divided by races. Continual education is at the heart of racial socialization. For young children, education is the elders' responsibility. For adults, the responsibility is our own. We have to remain vigilant and questioning. We have to constantly endeavor to keep ourselves informed and our education current. We have to question the images we ourselves are portraying. We have to examine the sounds and pictures we expose ourselves to. We have to filter what we hear on the news and strive to understand what is true. So that leads to telling the truth about the world, telling the children the truth about the world that we exist in. There's no single prescription for protecting people against racism, bigotry, and hatred. There's no one-shot inoculation against intolerance or fanaticism. However, it appears that educating people to understand that these things do exist and about the manner in which they are manifested can be helpful to those who come face to face with them. Racial socialization can be a process whereby individuals are taught to identify and detect the potential negative effects of assaults, overt as well as covert. These assaults may come in the form of individual diminishment, such as blatant name calling or condescending, or may be targeted at African Americans in general. So an example that she used is a tabloid newspaper that had the headlines, "No intelligent black men found here." And in this tabloid headline, this tabloid headline is not seen as a serious newspaper. The newspaper is not taken serious. But the example she used of telling the truth is a young boy around 7 years old is getting better at reading. He's learning how to read better, sounding his words out and doing everything. So as he experiences the world, he's reading things. And they walk down the street and he comes across this tabloid newspaper, and the tabloid newspaper says, "No intelligent black men found here." He reads it, and no intelligent black men found here, but he doesn't know what the word intelligent means. So later on in the conversation with his parents, he asks his parents, "What does intelligent mean?" And they tell him not smart. So he goes on to ask, "So are they saying there are no smart black men here?" And that leads to a conversation of the parents having to tell him about the environment that he lives in and the racism that is in the environment that he lives in. Exposing your children to the truth, but not barraging them with things that they don't understand and they can't handle. But if you yourself don't understand it and can't handle it, you can't teach your child. That's why we do these videos, so we can better understand racism ourselves and we can come up with the best solutions to combat racism. So we should do ourselves and our children a favor by not pretending that the problem of racism no longer exists. We should not send them up unprepared into a racially charged battlefield, ignorant of the mental, emotional, and social landmines that await them. Little Tyrone should certainly not be told right out of the diapers about what a statistical probability is that he will be arrested and serve jail time, or the likelihood that he may, based upon his name alone, be singled out and discriminated against. But telling black boys and girls about some of the problems which may face them and how they might knowingly survive them or avoid them seems to be the humane thing to do. It is unfortunate that we have to teach our children to guard against anybody trying to touch their private parts, warn them not to talk to people they do not know, and not all grown-ups tell the truth or are good people, right? Regrettably, we have to protect our children from doing what comes naturally to them, being curious about the world and the people in it, and trusting that they are safe and loved. As parents and adults, we are duty bound to guide and protect our children. As part of our covenant, we must teach them how to navigate through the perils of our society's most deeply rooted discriminatory practices and still succeed. So I will say, from my study in history, that has been the world that we've lived in. The world that we've lived in has not been a nice and fair world. World has been cruel to humans. Humans have been cruel to humans, I would say. And we have to understand that to survive and to thrive in this world, you have to have power and be able to protect yourself from the outside forces. That's why when you create a society, you got to be able to protect yourself from people coming to take your stuff and your people and conquer you. Humans have always had to protect themselves against other humans, and we are no different. We are not special, and things should not be different for us because we created nothing to be different. So we must understand how human beings actually exist, no matter the race, no matter the continent, no matter the cultures, no matter all these things. Not saying 100%. I'm not saying that's absolute. I'm not saying that's 100% of all human beings and all cultures that have ever lived. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, when people get power, they want more power. And when people believe they can take power and they have the opportunity to take power, they do it. They did it on the African continent. They did it in Europe. They did it in Asia. They did it in America. They did it in Australia. They did it in the South Pacific. They did it anywhere humans inhabited the earth. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get down to modeling good behavior. It is often said that the fastest way to learn a skill is to watch someone do it well and model yourself after them. Modeling is the chief way humans learn, especially when we are young. It is likely the most powerful educational tool we have. Most of us learn how to do life through the modeling of our parents and extended families. We learn how to parent, how to deal with money, how to be married, how to be with our friends, primarily through watching how those close to us do those things. The operative word is watching. If mom and dad fight a lot, their child will learn that fighting is a part of being married. If mom and dad complain a lot about work, their child will learn that work is not meant to be enjoyed. If mom and dad save money and invest, that's what their child will learn to do with their money. If mom and dad have rich spiritual lives, the chances are the child will have those type of lives as well. Young children will naturally learn almost any behaviors they repeatedly are exposed to. Therefore, we need to model the behaviors we want our children to exhibit. Therefore, we must model the behaviors we want our children to exhibit. If you want your children to know right from wrong, you have to show them by your daily behavior. If you want them to be readers, you need to be reading as a part of your life. Whether or not you wish to be a model, if you have children, you are. Even if you don't have children, as long as you're around them, you are a model. We must model these attributes we want them to learn. If you want the children to be better, we must be better. You can't be out there twerking and shaking your ass all out there in the streets, all out in public on videos and things. And they get mad when the younger generations are doing it. I remember hearing the conversation about like the rappers that I grew up with. The rappers who I grew up with are criticizing the rappers of today because the rappers of today use the drugs, but the rappers that I grew up with sold the drugs, and they can't understand why the rappers of today use the drugs. I'm like, well, you all set the foundation for selling the drugs and then popularized it. So why wouldn't the rappers of today be the users? You don't see how you contributed to it? I remember seeing a video of the rapper Kaya, who is saying that she didn't contribute to rappers like Sexy Red and Sukihana and Glorilla existing. I'm like, well, you put out My Neck, My Back. That wasn't a good uplifting song. That was a song about your sexual prowess and your body parts. How is that different? You were just 20 years earlier. The behavior we're modeling is not the behavior we want the younger generations to exhibit, but we won't stop modeling bad behavior because we're insane. And that's why we need the proper healing and the program changing. Modeling, or the lack thereof, is why mere recitations like "be all you can be," or pronouncements such as "you can do anything," are not enough for African Americans, particularly for our children and youth. We got to do more than talk. All that talking ain't meaning nothing. They ain't did nothing. They ain't changed nothing. Stop with all the sayings. Black people love sayings too. We love sayings, but let's stop backing them sayings up with nothing. Those sayings have to be backed up with real actions, actions that can yield positive outcomes as well. Without such examples, simple words of exhortation, seminars, or more elaborate classes become chalked up to vague or idealistic hopes and dreams. People are often left discouraged and unconvinced. It is difficult to believe those around you that consistently tell you that your aspirations are definitely attainable when you don't know of anyone who has attained them. These real-life examples serve as evidence of possibility. And the more evidence in our immediate environment, the greater the expectation we will have of our own ultimate success. And I said this earlier, and I said it again. We need more examples. We need more tangible examples, day-to-day, everyday examples of success in our community. We know what the children see as success. We need to show it to them, but show it to them in a different way. Show it to them in a positive way. Show it to them in a way that helps to uplift and build the community. Rugged individualism gets us nowhere. You're either going to be the single ant that faces the praying mantis by yourself and get destroyed, or you're going to be the ant that rides with your colony and you all dismember the praying mantis. White supremacists, the praying mantis, the ants are us. The decision is up to us. It's at this point, we're the only ones stopping ourselves from healing ourselves and empowering ourselves. So, telling our story. Telling our stories can be redemptive. Telling our stories can free us. Telling our stories can help uplift others. I believe an integral part of racial socialization is learning the histories of those in our family and community. That's why I do what I do when I do what I do. You know what I'm talking about? Storytelling is an important part of our education. It strengthens us and helps us build resilience. It helps us put things in proper perspective. That's why every Wednesday I drop some kind of historical video so we know our story. We have to know our story. It is difficult, if not impossible, to instill a sense of pride and responsibility in African American children and youth when they remain ignorant about themselves. Black families have a wealthy store of memories about struggle, perseverance, and victory, replete with the usual host of characters that are included in such accounts. The antagonists and villains, along with the heroes and heroines, provide colorful descriptions of our family's tapestry. We, the elders, have only to speak. We owe it to them to tell our stories and to encourage them to tell their own. By so doing, we will build community across the generations, and with greater continuity, will continue a growing understanding of the confidence and our power to survive, overcome, and flourish. We must know our stories. We must tell our own stories. We must tell our own stories. We must tell our own stories. Moving ahead, building upon strengths. Building self-esteem. Taking greater control of our inner world and racially socializing ourselves and our families are some of the steps we can take in order to heal from the effects of post-traumatic slave syndrome. As we heal, we also have to move ahead. To do so, we can build upon traditional strengths that we have relied upon along the way. Our spirituality and faith, our sense of community, and our tradition of great leaders. We have needed all of these things to move as far as we have. Even with the limitations imposed by post-traumatic slave syndrome, we have come a long way. We now can use these to help complete our journey. And she goes into talking about how using the faith and the religion that we've accrued over the time to help heal ourselves. That's relative. But she talks about using faith. She talks about the spirit of community, the true spirit of community. Not this facade of community that we have now. Not just us just being a grouping of people, but us being a web of people working together, helping each other. Competent, strong leadership that won't sell us out, that will actually enrich us and empower us and won't enable us and leave us more docile and powerless. Strong leadership, real leadership, grassroots leadership, not appointed leadership by our oppressors. She also talks about us looking into the mirror at ourselves as individuals and as a collective, looking into our historical mirror, looking into our internal mirror, looking into our mirrors of truth. Do you like what you see when you look in the mirror at yourself? Do we like what we see when we look in our collective mirror? And if the answer is no, well, damn it, it's time for change. And we're the only ones that can do that. We're the only ones that can heal ourselves. We have to start with seeing ourselves different, working diligently every day to build ourselves as individuals and build ourselves as a collective, rebuilding our self-esteem, rebuilding our self-image, rebuilding our value, rebuilding our pride, rebuilding our continuity. We had these things at one point. We did have these things at one point, but the racist socialization got us to the point where we are now. Now, Dr. Joy is suggesting to add into the building up of the self-esteem to support it with racial socialization. Us teaching us about who we are, where we are, why we are, and how powerful we are and how great we are, and understanding our peaks and our valleys. We should be a decimated group of people right now, but we aren't. Why aren't we a decimated group of people? Because of our resilience. No. So let's build upon the strengths that we have. So we must question how we respond to others' achievements. And rather than being undermining or critical, we need to be elated and encouraging. We need to question how or if we need to defend ourselves from real or perceived insults, certain of our inherent worth. We need to re-examine how we mete out and discipline and chastise our children, always careful to exercise temperance and wisdom rather than reverting to habits born from the fragmented remnants of a torturous past. Perhaps most important of all, we as men and women, as families, neighbors, and communities must increase our capacity to love and to assess whether or not our people, our culture, and our environment are made better as a result of our involvement. Are we better because of us, or are we worse because of us? What is the work that we will put in to ensure that we have a brighter future for ourselves and our children? Will we still have the same complaints 100 years from now? If so, we ain't did shit. So that's chapter 6, healing, from page 178 to 210. From one page 78 to 210, that is chapter 6. That's the final chapter. There is an epilogue, but you can read that on your own. So I enjoyed this book. This is one of the best books we've read so far, in my opinion. I enjoy reading the book. All the information goes together. Another piece in the puzzle of showing us what happened to us, why it happened to us, when it happened to us, where it happened to us, who did it to us, but also is another nugget of information that we can use to help heal ourselves, to help change our situations. So another solution is offered. So with this solution that is offered, it is up to us to use the solution. All the books that we're reading offer up some type of solutions. They give us the information and follow it up with solutions. So how are we going to use the solutions in our daily lives now? Because what Dr. Joy told us, we can do this now. We can start right now. You can start today. After you get through watching this video, start doing what she said today. Start working on ourselves today. We don't have to wait on somebody to heal us. Why would our oppressors heal us? It doesn't make sense for our oppressors to make things better for us, but it makes perfect sense for us to better our own situations. But we have to give a damn. We have to care. We have to care. We have to care. We have to have the heart, the mind, and the soul to go and push for a better future. So I'm Joseph Ward. This is Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, Dr. Joy, the group, America's Legacy of Enduring Injury and Healing. The link to get your copy, if you haven't got your copy, I don't know why you haven't gotten your copy, especially if you've been rocking with us. Should have been got your copy, but the link to get your copy is in the description, as well as other links to support me. And thank you once again for everybody helping me get over 50,000. And look out for more things that I have coming up. I have a children's book dropping and some more educational things that I have coming on the horizon. And hey, you might even see me in your city. So I love you all, and make sure you catch the next video coming.